Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the finals of KTU debate tournament. And the finals motion is as follows. This House believes that Lithuania should immediately cut off political and economic ties with the Russian Federation. And we welcome the Prime Minister to open the finals. You have 7 minutes, madam.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, the President of Lithuania, Dalia Grybauskaitė, defined Russian Federation as terrorists, and today the government actually believes that we need immediately cut off the ties with the Russian Federation because of the following reasons that we are going to present in this debate. By the motion itself, we clearly state that we need to immediately cut off ties, political and economical ties, in 3 months' time, so that it would be easier for us to combine the plans that we are going to do, the economical plans. It would be easier for the citizens and for the foreign affairs. So by the political ties, we mean actually foreign affairs that we have with Russia and the whole international community, and by the economical ties we mean import and the export and the boundaries between them. Following the arguments that we have, first one that I'm going to talk about is the cutoff will be beneficial for the society. The second one, that it would be beneficial for economy, and the third one, that it would be beneficial politically. That my colleague Greta will going to expand a little bit more. So going to our first argument, that it would be beneficial for society. By that we mean that we would assure human rights by not letting Russian Federation go on and do things that they're actually doing now in Ukraine. If we cut off ties with the Russian Federation, we would prove, to the whole societies that we can clearly state that human rights are important. And look what the Russian Federation is now actually doing with the Ukrainian people. No, thank you. They're interfering, into Ukraine, and they're damaging their human rights by saying, okay, we are Russian Federation, I am Putin, I can allow myself to do anything that I want. By cutting off these ties, we show the Russian Federation that, you cannot treat us the way you treated us 20 years ago. We are not going to, surrender and be just simple toys with whom you can just, play and so on. By moving to, yes please.
Yeah, how are you going to ensure that we don't freeze to death next winter, because there's no way to ensure adequate gas supply to Lithuania? The terminal can't do that, we'll freeze to death.
Yes, to that point we are going to talk about benefits for the economy, which I'm going to expand later, and this will be answer to your point. By that we're saying that we have a great example today, that we're actually making, yes, we have this contract with, with Russia there, that we're getting gas, but we're actually moving forward to Norwegian companies, which are actually, we get the gas from them. So we are now even moving forward to, getting the gas from them and cutting off ties with the Russian Federation. Because Norwegians are far more better at these things, and the economy itself. So when going to that point that it is beneficial for economy, we think that finding partners in the economy which are far more better than Russians, it will assure us economical benefits. So this will be expanded by my colleague. So moving to the third argument, no thank you, that it's beneficial politically. So by cutting off these ties with the Russia, we would show to the international community that we can, we can go against that country. We can say our voice in that particular international community. And it would be shown that, every country has its own voice, and, it can say that for example, I don't want my rights, to be just disturbed or to damaged because just Russia wants it. So we would show a great example to, the international countries, international community, so that every kind of country, like Ukraine, could have a good example, like, Lithuania is doing a great thing, and we should follow and cut off these ties. So by that we mean that if we don't do these certain regulations, if we are not, cutting off these ties, we're not basically saying that we would just, cut off ties forever, but we're proving that we're going to cut off these ties immediately until the Russia will stop its aggression to Ukraine and other countries that it uses repression. So by doing that, cutting these ties, we will prevent ourselves from harms that are occurring. So the main flaws and the main harms that we have today is, if we don't do that, things could happen that happened 20 years ago when we were incorporated and in the Soviet Union. Also, the same thing could happen as it happened in Ukraine. We're a far more smaller country, and interference can be done if we don't do these certain regulations. So for the government side, we believe that Russia is going against the democracy and human rights are being harmed, and if we are conscious enough, without further thinking, we will cut off immediately the political and economical ties. So if you really care about your rights, if you care about your political and economical system, you will propose the government and you will propose this motion.
Right, so ladies and gentlemen, today's government's case resembles a penguin. It's cute as hell, but it doesn't fly. And why it doesn't fly, I will talk to you in my rebuttal, and then I'm going to move on to give you two arguments as we see that why Lithuania is not ready and cannot even think about cutting off all the ties it has with Russia. My two arguments will be strictly based on economy, saying that why Lithuania is a small country, it will definitely die because it's not independent enough. And the second is why finding alternatives would be an impossible case and even more impossible in only 3 months. While my second speaker will be talking about sociological, political aspects of why we cannot cut off all the ties with Russia, right? So now moving on to see why I said it cannot fly, aka it doesn't work. Let's see. Look at their model. They suggest 3 months. We believe that 3 months is a ridiculously close time to find good alternatives that would not destroy the country economically or politically, ladies and gentlemen. We have so many deals and treaties and contracts with Russia that we are so dependent that we cannot fix all of this in only 3 months. It's just absurd and unrealistic. Moving on. They suggest that it would be beneficial for society because if Lithuania shows that we do not support Russia, Putin will understand that he was doing something bad and he will get out of Ukraine. No, that is not going to happen. Let's look at what the G20 meeting happened, right? Everybody simply ignored Putin. Did he care? Hell no. That's just because a small country like Lithuania will stand up and say, okay, Russia, go out, we don't want you, that's it. We do not believe that Putin will start thinking, oh my God, maybe I'm a bad man.
On that point.
No, this is just surreal and not going to happen in any way. And I actually believe that Russia would be enraged by something like this. So we think we should maybe avoid something stupid. Moving on. A very good aspect and a very good point mentioned by them was the fact that we're getting gas from Norway. Well, the current situation is that this enraged Russia and skipping all the economical terms, what we have now is that our gas prices are actually going to be going up, right? I remember the day when the Independence ship came with all this gas into my hometown, Klaipėda. We had a very huge discussion, and basically what we did, in a way, is we raise the prices, and from one slave driver we went to another. So we do not see how this situation is better in any way, and we did definitely not gain anything good from the situation. Now, moving on to benefits politically, we see that we're sending an international message. Yet again, we are a very small country with very small political power, right? We do not see how a small country like us can affect something so big like Russia, right? Just as I said,
On that point.
let me finish. When the G20 meeting, everybody boycotted Russia, everybody boycotted Putin, and that was so wrong, but it will be more analyzed in the second speech. Yes?
So do you think that basically if a country is small, it has, 3 million people, it doesn't even have a voice in the international community?
It has a voice, but it's so pathetic, and we believe that we should be very careful with that voice. If we say that we do not like you and that we don't care about you, we're going to be stumped, and that's something we do not want, right? We do not want Lithuania to be devoured by this huge bear, and we say we have a voice, but we have to be very careful what we say with it. So this is why I see that your model is broken and your arguments will not work in the real life. Moving on to my arguments to say why we believe that this will be devastating for Lithuania in economical terms. First of all, just as I mentioned, Lithuania is not ready for economical independence, right? We have many treaties, let's just mention, with Russia. We have many products and services coming from Russia and by Russia. And now what would happen if we suddenly cut off all the treaties and all the terms and all the connections we have to them? We would have to look for replacement, and this would be devastating. And also, we would have to be independent energetically, which something Lithuania is not capable of doing, right? We can maybe find new partners, but just like with the Norwegian example, those new partners do not have cheaper alternatives to give us, right? So it would be very, very expensive and would be very hard to find a very good solution.
On that point, sir.
No, so that's why we say that Lithuania is not ready on an economical scale to become so independent by cutting off all ties to Russia, right? So this is I think this is a suggestion, a move that would be based on impulse and not rational and logical thinking, which is something we should avoid in this situation while talking about political economical sanctions, political economical relations, especially Lithuania and Russia. Moving on to my second argument, what would happen to, for example, produce of import and export with Lithuania and Russia if we would simply cut off? Now, for example, I think it's not a big surprise if I would say that in Lithuania, besides our local produce, we have the majority being Polish, Russian, and Chinese. Well, because China. Moving on. Let's focus on Russian. What would happen if we would cut off all this? We would lose a certain percentage of services, products, and when we lose this, we will have to find alternatives, and in 3 months' time, yet again, this is impossible, and let's ignore the fact that they said 3 months. Even if we would find something magically in 3 months, we see that this will not work because that something would be more devastating economically terms than it is with Russia. So we do not see any benefits whatsoever. Moving on to the second aspect of this argument is that why I see that Lithuania would suffer more is because of import. What would happen if, export, Lithuanian export. Now, Lithuania has a certain percentage of export that's going strictly to Russia. And this export brings us economical welfare and economical wealth. And now, what would happen if we cut off all those ties is that we would lose a very huge percentage of our income coming from Russia directly, right? And what we have to do, we would have to look for new people that would be very interested in our products. But since we're talking about Russia right now, they have a very sole purpose of being interested. Now, if we would look for new partners, for example, in the more Western liberal countries, being USA or more advanced European countries, we believe that they already have good partners and they would really don't have any interest in our Lithuanian produce. We do not see that there is a normal possibility or a chance that some country would be very interested in taking out what Russia is taking from us right now. So basically what would happen is that we would either lose a huge part of our wealth coming from import to Russia, or we would lose absolutely everything. Each way, we will be devastated from this aspect. So ladies and gentlemen, what I've told you today, the model that the government suggests is simply broken and it does not work. What I said today is that Lithuania has no independence on energetic and economical terms, so that's why we cannot be very rash and very radical with Russia. So what we suggest is that we stay with the status quo and we do not cut off any political or economical ties with Russia that we have today. And for those reasons, I beg you to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker. In my speech, I'm going to a little bit expand about what my colleagues said about economical and society, and also expand more about political issues. And first, some rebuttal. What the government said today is that if we are small, we can't do anything. Yeah, that's kind of small too, but the whole religious society is gathered there. So it doesn't mean that if you're small, you can't do anything. And even 100 miles journey starts from the first step. So if you show the example, it can be led by others. Also, about that 3 month and economical not benefits is that 3 months would be enough time for us to stay in the winter, as it was mentioned in the POI. And after that, doesn't mean that other countries, no thank you, other countries can see that we took this step and they could also offer us their help as they're doing for Africa countries and so on. And this campaign could be spread also to other countries. As my colleague mentioned before, that Russia doesn't follow the human rights and respect to other countries itself. For example, you probably read in the news that Putin, when came to China, which he made an agreement to be supported, he wasn't interested into its culture and put the coat on the president's wife, which was thought to be inappropriate. That's where we go to the political issues that no thank you. That Lithuania, as my colleague nicely started the introduction, said that Grybauskaitė called Russia terrorist. She did that and she highlighted that in the news. So we took a first step, like internationally, by showing that Russia is actually acting like a terrorist and that should not be tolerated. After this article, no thank you, all over the internet we could see the hashtag thank you Dalia by people who showed their support to this point. What we are saying that Lithuania should do that start, and also it could help not only for Lithuania but also other peoples, because Russia literally don't follow the agreements. For example, with Finland, they have the agreement with Finland and it has the independency like the neutrality from other countries, but Russia still tries the boundaries between those two countries by always sending the ships or planes to the territory just to see what happens. She's testing us, and if at least no thank you, at least one country could show no thank you the example how even if you're small, how you can actually show that you have enough guts to do everything. This could be a good start. Also, let's know, thank you, don't forget the international agreement with the Baltic countries and Russia, when the countries should, or by the agreement, reveal some information about their armies, no thank you, and weapons position. Russia for a few years didn't say anything about theirs, but took information about the Baltic states. And also, the last but not the least is, no thank you, Malaysia plane situation, when Russia didn't take the responsibility for that, by showing that they actually not really care what happened, when the whole world actually saw what happened, no thank you, and blamed them for doing this. Okay.
Okay, all of these examples are great. Thank you for showing that Russia sincerely doesn't care about anything. So what makes you think that Russia will care that Lithuania wants to cut off its ties and do nothing and be okay with that?
Because of a few reasons. First of all, there are a lot of countries who want to do the action, but they don't because they're afraid, and they don't do that because no one does. If USA doesn't do that, then we won't do that too because we're too small. But is that actually true, that your size defines the things you can do? No, it's not true. Yes, we are dependable now more for Russia than to other countries. However, as I said before, we could get a support from other countries who, because Lithuania, for example, no thank you, have a very good underground water resources, when Russia has really good, for example, gas and so on and so forth. But if you look back to the history, Lithuania once were to the Black Sea, and what happened, it becomes smaller because of all invasion to the country. When Russia became bigger, because she did what she does now with Ukraine, as my colleague mentioned, she just say, I want you and I go to you. And it doesn't matter nothing what your size is. What we're saying is that if you are brave enough to show what you can do internationally, at least some of the countries will do that. And also it is already going on that other countries stopping their agreements with Russia and taking care of it. Also, some airlines stopped the visits to the Russia, so it has the economical impact to Russia in one way or the other. And if at first Lithuania won't have a big enough impact, countries who will join the Lithuania later will make that impact even bigger. So what we're saying, we should encourage that revolution to stop this illegal actions from the Russia, and show other countries that even if you are small, as Grybauskaitė also said, where we were occupied by the Russia, so we know exactly that's why we should speak louder. And what we're saying is that let's speak with the actions, not only by the words.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, I would like to begin with a simple statement that size does matter. And this is the way I will start my rebutting on a few points that our government said here. They said that size doesn't matter, that you have to show the guts, etc., etc. Well, it all sounds really good, but the same thing about the penguin that my colleague mentioned before works here really fine. Because in the real world, size does matter. It does matter how big of a country you are. And when you say that size does matter, do you want to say that if China would want to do the same things as you are suggesting Lithuania to do, it would be at the same level? No. It would be a whole different of a level, and Russia would have to do complete different decisions. But now when it comes to Lithuania, yeah, you were talking about that Dalia Grybauskaitė calling Russia a terrorist type of a country. Well, we have the consequences already. Russia said that they are already considering cutting the ties with Lithuania. So as you can see, if anything, they are not. No, thank you. They are not afraid of this thing that you are suggesting for Lithuania to do. So the last thing that I would like to mention about what the opposition said, they gave that example about religion and so on, but I would just like to state that religion does not equal politics, and the argumentation here should be completely different, so let's not use religion argument on the politics. No, thank you then again. Okay. Now I would like to move to my own argument, which is mostly about the politics, and our opposition we're talking a lot about democracy, how Russia is violating democracy, how they're going against human rights. But if we want to hold on that same democracy, first of all, we got to understand that what democracy stands for is going into debate, is going into conversation with everybody, no matter how much you disagree. No, thank you. How much you disagree with their beliefs on your personal level. So, and from here we go to the mentioned G20 example, where Vladimir Putin was pretty much ignored on it. And what does that bring us? What does that bring us as politicians, as other countries? Yes, okay.
G20 was also organized for the youth, and for example, it should be held in Russia, but it won't be held in Russia because of its politics with other countries. So it affects maybe not the higher leaders, but also the youth. It affects.
Okay, but you know, there's that simple thing that not the youths call the shots in the big countries. So, okay, maybe some youths in Russia are disappointed about that, but at the end of the day, it's not them who said what to do in their country, okay? So talking about back to G20, what happened there. So what I'm trying to say that when the Vladimir Putin was ignored, the only thing that we got from that there was no conversation, there was no approach to him. We're not talking whether he's good or bad. We're saying that we have to go into conversation with that person. Just because if we don't, the only thing that we get, that we don't know what's going in his mind. No, thank you. We don't know what is going in his mind. We don't know what he's planning because we are not talking with him. So, and
Before you go.
yes.
And the annexation of the Crimea has been now like from the March, so it's more than half a year. So how long it is for you to continue the negotiation until the Ukraine and then other Baltic states will be annexed too?
The topic that our politicians sometimes lack the spine, it's another topic. I'm not talking about the fact that they should be more radical or something. I'm talking that they should keep on being politicians, because what are you suggesting is something that you can do to your friend, that you don't like it and you just turn your back. We're talking about politics, and you know, when we're talking on the topic that they should be more radical, that they should find Russia more or whatnot, well, this is not our debate topic. We're talking that we should keep on with the conversation with Russia. And moving on about, you know, this, no thank you. This whole politics thing, that the politics in general should be based on logical argumentation and political discussion and not on your personal feelings. And that's pretty much what we are being suggested by the government. No thank you. That we would treat Russia as some sort of a friend, some sort of a thing that we can just turn our backs to, and after like 3 months, have you said the Russia would be like, okay, we will stop invading Crimea. It won't happen like that. And going back to the fact that you said that Crimea is still being invaded and so on, but the ignoring of the conversation won't solve that. That's what I'm talking about in general. That's what our... Yes.
Don't you think, remember the example of the United States actually trying to make the conversation with Russia, and Putin was just ignoring the fact that someone wants to make a conversation. What about that? What about the Russia ignoring the debates and the conversations?
But the debate kind of approach is the only one that's actually possible here, because when you're saying that we should turn our backs on, that does not work that way. Even if the trying for a conversation does not seem to bring results in a week or 2 or even half a year, that's why the democratic type of countries have to keep on trying. Because we are democratic, because we believe in conversations, not in just turning backs around. No, thank you. Because there is no good example in the world history when turning backs to somebody who is being oppressive gave any good results. Tell me one dictator that when backs were turned to him, he said, okay, I'm going to be good now. To sum everything up, I would like to say that the suggestions that were given by the government are simply not realistic and won't give us no beneficial aspects, will give us no benefits, neither in the long or a short run. It does not matter, it just won't work. And even if you believe that political and debate approach is not working at the moment, we still got to keep on trying, just because of what we believe in, and in the long term, that's the only way that we can achieve something as a country. Thank you, and I beg you to close.
Respected panel and members of this delegation, to give you a description of my speech, again, I'm going to give you 3 points of rebuttal, and I'm going to give you 4 points on extension about, why, cutting off ties from Russia is the more logical thing to do. So let's start off with my rebuttal. The first thing is, this logic that came up, this idea more or less that came up that says, democracy is about, getting into dialogue with everybody. But let's put the same logic here. Would you actually continue talking with a guy who's been oppressive to you for decades, who's been exploiting you, who's been suppressing you, and finally, not making it known to the international community? I find that logic very flawed and invalid. For the second point, second point was, politics should not be based on feelings, and yeah, we agree, we as the government agree, and we also agree at the point given that said, politics should be made on logical agreements. And that's why I, logically, am going to tell you why, that, ties with Russia is not going to be beneficial. And for the third point, is a very valid point, and I agree. They said turning backs is not going to give change. we agree. But what we push for is we're not trying to change Russia. We're just trying to show Russia that, by turning back to them, we're going to give them consequences financially, politically, and whatnot. And I'll elaborate all of that in my speech. So to go on to my political points is that by pushing, I'm not going to make something clear. I'm not going to talk about any timelines. I'm just going to talk about why, cutting off Russia is the more beneficial thing to do. But the rhetoric that was given to us by the opposition is like, Lithuania is so small, it can't make an impact. And I totally disagree. Countries like Singapore and Hong Kong have the financial capability to cripple South Asia on itself financially. And we believe that, by the following arguments that I give, Lithuania can be a more formidable power. So to go on to my first point, that Lithuania would be more independent in itself by cutting off Russia. But what we see nowadays is almost every country that has independence from Russia that broke up from the Soviet Union has some kind of conflict or the other, and Russia takes its size as an advantage and uses it to bully the smaller countries, and it's even started to take on bigger countries like Ukraine. Let's not forget Georgia. Let's not forget the border disputes with Kazakhstan and all that. And we feel that cutting it off entirely, by turning our backs to it, we're going to more or less send a message to Russia that we're not going to be your bully, or we're not going to be bullied by you anymore.
And on that point, before we go on,
all right.
Don't you believe that on the point of bullying, for example, it would be better to straightforward say that I'm not going to be bullied, but instead of turning your back and letting you be shot in the head?
Yes. But technically, you answered your own question in your first round when you said a country like Russia, when 20 of the world's biggest economies turned their backs to Russia, and Russia didn't say Russia just ignored them. Russia just ignored them. We more or less feel that Russia is not really going to feel it. Russia is not really going to twitch or do anything about do anything. Another question to ask Lithuanians in general is, what does Russia offer to Lithuania politically? If you look at Russia politically, it does not have strong political allies. Even China and India only rely on Russia for economics, and Russia in itself does not have political allies. That's why we feel that cutting off ties with them and pushing for more integration with Western Europe, with America, because America and Europe combined, have almost 70% of the world backing them up. They have good relations with Saudi Arabia, or they have good relations with South America, and we feel that with the more diversity that the West offers is much bigger than just this continental thing that just Russia offers. You please.
Yeah, but Russia is gonna stay here forever. Don't you think that it would be much better to make Russia our friend instead of antagonizing it and isolating from the national
okay, I will come to that point later on, and I will address you directly to my point. All right, now let's look at the economics here. Now, as you said very clear, as the opposition said very clearly, yes, Lithuania is reliant on Russia, and this gives a motion for Russia to bully Lithuania in the same way it's been bullying Ukraine right now. Ukraine is not able to, give a good push against this Russian separatists because Russia has the gridlock on the gas and the food supply. So what we feel that if Lithuania starts cutting off its economic ties with Russia, Lithuania in a sense can actually bully Russia, because you're going to say, all right, dude, all right, Putin, if you're going to if you're going to continue your aggression like that, you're going to lose some money, you're going to lose some support. You can actually make Lithuania's economic standings with Russia count in a way, but if you cut it off, you're going to actually, give some economic consequences to Russia. No matter how small, people are going to get affected by it. Another thing is, Russia has been known to be a very unreliable supplier. As you look as an unreliable supplier in terms of food and in terms of agriculture, in terms of gas, and we find that the Western allies. We're not saying that the Western allies are going to offer something cheaper. They're going to offer you something more reliable. All right, they have the means to do it. They have the resources to do it, and they have shown to do it. Unlike Russia here, that's why in terms of pure statistical basis, in terms of pure historical basis, it is more safer to bet your money on the West rather than Russia. And another social point I would like to say is that the public opinion in Lithuania is generally against Russia, and we feel that it would give more of a morale boost, or more of an upliftment for Lithuanian people in general, because you're showing that we have totally cut off from our oppressors. We don't have to rely on our oppressors in everything and whatnot. Yes, another important thing to agree is that yes, if we do cut off economic repercussions with Russia, yes, we are going to freeze for another two to three winters. I'm not going to give you any dates. We agree there are repercussions, but the benefits that follow after the repercussions will be far greater than relying on a single source. A good example for this is Poland. Poland during the Soviet times used to rely heavily on Russia for food and oil, but now now reducing its imports in terms of oil and agriculture from Lithuania. Poland has become a lot more independent and does not really rely on Russia. A very important thing to note, as what we and the government is proposing, is we're not actually going to cut off Russia. We're not going to say all right, we're not going to talk to you. You are no longer close to us. What we feel is like cutting off our relations for a time where Lithuania could become independent politically, independent more economically. So when it becomes a more substantial power, it could deal with Russia on its own terms. And that's what, ladies and gentlemen, I beg you to propose.
Dear members of parliament, what the government side has failed to understand is that our goal is to have, our ultimate goal is to have a friendly and an adequate neighbor. Our goal is not to destroy Russia militarily. Our goal is not to destroy Russia economically. Our goal is to have a friendly neighbor. Our goal is to show the Russian people that the current government, the government run by President Putin, is not the right way to go. That this government is going to destroy Russia economically, it's going to destroy any signs of democracy in it. And our goal is to show the Russian people that the European Union and we have a better path for them. Now, by implementing this proposal, we will destroy all the legitimacy we have. It will destroy our position, absolutely, because it will turn us from this somebody who offers a better solution for Russia to an aggressor, which actually wants to be an enemy of Russia. Now, the thing is that this proposal would not damage the Russian government standing even the tiniest bit, because it won't gonna work. And I'm going to expand on that a bit later. The thing is that who's this proposal is gonna hurt? It's gonna hurt the Russian people, nothing, it's gonna hurt the Russian people who rely on the livelihood from trade with Lithuania, who work in the oil sector, etc. Because like when those people now come to a supermarket and they can't buy cheese, when they can't buy milk or meat, who do they blame? They blame the Russian government because the Russian government has imposed those embargoes. Now, if we do that ourselves, if we ban trade with Russia, whose fault is gonna be that a simple Russian has nothing to do with the current regime can't buy milk or whatever in a supermarket? Well, it's gonna blame us because we will be the aggressor. The other thing is that if we actually announce now that in 3 months we are gonna ban trade with Russia, what will Russia do? It will simply start this embargo now. It will turn off the gas tap, turn off the oil tap, and what will happen? Well, that would be legitimate because we actually announced that we are gonna embargo them, so that step would be rational for them. And when we can't ensure adequate supply of gas in the winter, who the Lithuanian people are gonna blame for this? Well, obviously Lithuanian government, because when you're freezing during the winter in a flat, when you're nearly freezing to death, well, we won't gonna think whether our choice was moral or not. A bit later, they are gonna blame the Lithuanian government because it actually forced them to freeze, and for that reason, they actually support Russia.
And what about the relations that we are trying to make with Norwegia and so on to get the alternatives on the gas and the other things that we actually need?
It took us how many 10 years to build a oil terminal, and we are gonna we won't be able to fulfill adequate supply for Lithuania in 3 months. That's not gonna work. No, thank you. For this reason, we will not be able to ensure these resources. That's a good long-term goal. We should strive for energetic independence, but we can't do it overnight. No, thank you. Now, the other thing is that, well, what does this proposal do? It legitimizes Russian aggression towards us. Well, it makes us the bad guy, because what Russia is doing now, well, everything Russia does, the economic sanctions, the intervention in Ukraine, it actually is blaming it on Western countries, on Lithuania, on NATO.
As you were saying, it's true, Russia is doing propaganda. As a few years ago, when they tried to take the television tower, only because Lithuania was translating that to the world, the world believed that it's not true. So Russia already is on the loop. So what we need is one country to do move.
Well, the thing is that, well, we believe, that we are right, and, by isolating Russia, we do something good. But the thing is that the European Union, it's not afraid of Russia. It might impose those sanctions if it thought that it was a good choice. But the European Union does not want to antagonize Russia. The European Union does not want, to make Russia into a real enemy. The European Union wants peace and stability and trade. And the thing is that by isolating Russia, we will not achieve that. No, thank you. We will turn Russia into pariah state, just like North Korea. Because if we became their enemy, like if we actually show aggression towards them, well, they will be able to legitimize every action they do against us, just like North Korea legitimizes everything they do. Because like the Americans, they are opposing us, they are not trading with us, we are starving to death because there are no export of food into our country. That's America's fault. Therefore, everything our government does is right. And that would be an entirely same situation. The thing is that, this proposal, it's not gonna work. Because we'll show a great example, for the Western countries to follow, and I think that's absurd. Well, we'll simply portray ourselves as warmongers in the West, a country which does not want stability, a country which does not want to solve the conflict in Ukraine, and will antagonize Russia to behave even more violently, because ultimately, this proposal is only beneficial for one country in the world, for Russia. Because if we enact this proposal, the Russian government will have a free hand to do whatever they want, because the only sign they were waiting for throughout the conflict, was a sign from us that we oppose them, that we want to, somehow oppress them, and we want ourselves to become the oppressor. And that will only help the Russian government. No, thank you. The thing is that this proposal is not gonna work. It will only strengthen the Russian position. It will only strengthen Putin's position, because the basic thing it will achieve will demonize our position in the eyes of the Russian people. Because some of the Russian people who do not follow the propaganda by the regime, they do not believe in the regime now, because they see that the West, the European Union, Lithuania, we are open to trade. We want to be a friend to Russia. And the only obstacle to that is the regime, is Putin, who opposes these beneficial relations, would be beneficial for Russian economy. Now, if we ban trade to Russia, those people will have no choice entirely except to support the current regime, because we no longer want to help them, we no longer want to be friends. So what's left for them? Well, only the regime. So for these reasons, we urge you to vote against this motion. This motion would only help Russia and would destroy our economy, and it would be not beneficial for us.
Hello everyone. That was a fine speech. Thank you. And so I would like to start my rebuttal to my opponent here. He said that Russia is going to be a friendly neighbor. How do you say it's going to be a friendly neighbor when the signs of, you can see the signs of oppression and bullying from Russia? How can a friendly neighbor, give me gas at such expensive prices? Tell me, how is it friendly? It's not friendly. And the second rebuttal is gas in winter. Okay, we can break ties with Russia and rely on new ties with EU, which is stable right now, and they can give us oil from Saudi, which is very possible, which is happening right now with many other countries. So we get gas from Saudi instead of relying on Russia. And the third rebuttal is the Russian military said, okay, we show our backs to Russia. You're saying that they can have, a threat to us. Okay, then we have a respectable ties with the European Union. So NATO will come for our defense, Lithuanian defense. So I don't see how will that be a threat to us when we have a good tie-up with the European Union. Yes.
That would be a problem because we refuse to act like the rest of the Europe Union because we decided to act differently, and that's why we're not going with the whole Europe Union. That's why it would be a problem.
Yes, I'll come back to that. Just let me start with my arguments, and that's oppose one of your statements. So, yes, such political and economic ties with Russia or any huge country for that matter will, cement Lithuania's hard-earned independence. Next one, I'll get back to you. So, and it will conclusively end up in Russia taking away the independence and Lithuanian identity as its own independent nation economically and politically, just because you share resources with Russia. Yes.
But don't you agree that ultimately it would be much better for us if Russia was our friend, and if we would be able to show through them, through friendly relations to the Russian people, that the Russian government is not good for them, and that they should choose a different government which would be more friendly with the West, that would be a much, much better solution than the one you're proposing.
The thing here is we don't care about the Russians. We care about Lithuanians. We care only about our nation, the Lithuanian nation. So, okay, no jokes. So, you said, as we can see what's happening with Ukraine, Russia doesn't respect its allies also. So, and finally Lithuania ends up becoming one of its colonized regions, so it becomes part of Russia again. But a tie-up with EU, you strengthen the tie-ups and make it even more political and economically stable. Make sure I'm pretty sure Lithuania has the potential and the capability to have a stable relationship with the European Union, and thus it can be a free nation without having any oppressing threat from Russia or having to worry about fuel or worry about cold winters. Okay, so
before you go, sir.
Yes.
On NATO help, we had two world wars when USA and UK promised the help to the rest of Europe and it wasn't there. Why do you say it will be here this time?
That's because Lithuania is working on to work on the ties and make it happen. So I have a few economic points which will help us. We know that Russia is very unreliable in the supply of oil. From time to time, there is no supply, or it's either very expensive, and this is in itself has a lot of problems with Lithuanian, gas supply. So thus, as I repeat again, having a strong tie-up with the EU will give us oil from Arabic countries like Saudi and Dubai, etc.
On this point, sir.
No, I'm going to continue. So, and this whole notion that saying, as my colleague mentioned, Lithuania is small. We have seen small nations such as Japan, such as Singapore having such high economy and such high growth per GP, ratios, and it's very I don't know, it's like you have a small heart and saying that Lithuania can't just because it's small develop. So since and we can see that Lithuania is very capable and it has potential to independently develop into one of such nations as Singapore or Monaco or what was the country again? Oh yeah, Japan. Yeah, so thus I conclude by saying let's strengthen our relationship with the European Union, who treat us as a sovereign nation, as a nation with its own identity, and have you know, no threat of oppressions or threat of oppressions or anything else from Russia. Thank you.
Can I start? Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to deliver a few words of rebuttal. Speaking about all the examples we heard today, Singapore, Japan, they are calling them small nations. Come on, guys, it simply doesn't pass the reality check, because we are 3 million, speaking about Lithuania, and you are trying to bring the examples of Singapore and Japan. Please inform yourself about the numbers of their population and so on, and then try to call them small nations. So that argument is simply not relevant, and it was present throughout the whole your debate. Okay, so basically, in my speech, I want to deliver 2 messages to the judges. First of all, our ultimate goal is to have a friendly, adequate neighbor, and aggression is not the answer to achieve that. Second of all, by supporting the motion, we give a powerful weapon not to the Russian people, but to the powerless government. Okay, so when I was preparing my speech, I was about to say that the government proposes to shoot ourselves in the foot, but throughout the debate I came to a conclusion that basically what we propose is shooting ourselves in the face twice. Okay, and speaking about aggression, and any act of aggression is a sign of weakness, government, no thank you, and government proposes the act of aggression, because cutting the relationship like that is an act of aggression in any international politics. No thank you, no thank you, no. Aggression is an act which takes place either when all options are exhausted, or either when a subject or a party is not able to come up with a rational and civilized decision, and this is the case. Okay, so first of all, about the argument my partner has introduced, and it also was the clash throughout the whole debate. Speaking about our goal, making Russia our friend, we want to achieve that without any radical acts, avoiding all the dangers. No, thank you. This aggressive, brutal proposition contains. By maintaining the economical and political relations, we save them, because nothing is worse than an absent option of a dialogue. And we don't have any political, military, or economical force to oppose them the brutal way the government proposes. So, so about the mechanism, it was barely tackled in the first part of the debate, and I won't let it go unnoticed, because we introduced the 3 months period, and it begs the question. 3 months have passed, and nothing happened. For example, in theory, nothing was achieved. So what then? We have no option, we have no going back, and in the real world we can come to Russia, okay, Russia, sorry, that was stupid, kind of forgive me, that won't happen. Sir. No, thank you. And B, improve them by, we will improve the relations by choosing a rational approach with negotiations, changing the attitude of the Russian people, not the Russian government, because the Russian government is opposing the world and opposing the Russian people as well. No, thank you. So, because Putin is not forever, and we need to think about the long term, because we are changing the attitude of Russian people, which is essentially important, speaking about the future of our nations, because the governments will change, but the attitude, speaking about the people, is extremely essential, because stereotypes are formed very easily, and if Russians will start, Russian people, not the Russian government, will start to perceive Lithuanians as an enemy, which always opposes them and acts aggressively, we won't be friends ever, even if the government will have a neutral attitude towards us. So that also only brings the problems.
Before you go.
No. Okay. Second, by supporting the motion, we are presenting them with a legitimacy they last for. And I want to bring an example for it. The Russian bear is binded by the lack of legitimacy. And they try to use every occasion to acquire that legitimacy. And the example with Crimea is perfect, because, let's face it, when all the action in Crimea took place, they did try to, Russia today, through propaganda and so on, appear to the world as the legitimate country which acts legitimacy. So on that I base my reasoning that Russia actually lusts for legitimacy. We are not mindless brute who are going to destroy, but we also considering legitimacy. They want to appear legitimate. So by acting aggressively, we are giving them the tool to act aggressively towards us because they lust for it. And when we act like this aggressively in a stupid manner, we're providing them with what they want.
Sir, to this point.
Okay, so 2 points about it. First of all, we can get the inner support, speaking about the people, and we will lose the Russian people this way, because if Putin's propaganda will work, with our support, we will conquer the minds of the Russians, and this battle will be lost, and this battle is essential for our survival in the long run. B. On the
Can I help you, sir?
No. B. On the we will also lose the support on the world scene because we will appear as the ones who are oppressive, because I ensure you Putin's propaganda will improve. And next Crimea will look more legitimate if we give them the right grounds for it.
Sir.
Yes.
All right, first of all, Singapore is smaller than Kona, so Lithuania has surely a lot of potential. But my question is, Russia attacked Ukraine because Ukraine was trying to join the EU, and according to what you and your teammate have said, Ukraine is the oppressor here?
You see, speaking about Ukraine, I cannot give you an answer why Russia attacked it, because there are many political, economical reasons, and I won't get into this example because it's not the case of this debate. Simply what we are saying, that by choosing the aggressive approach instead of a dialogue, we are A, leaving with no option to go for if we lose the battle, and B, we are not acting rationally, how it was presented and explained throughout my speech. So to conclude, harms and benefits. The worst scenario, if you propose our position, the status quo will slightly improve. The best, we will have a good neighborhood in the long run. On the opposite, we will only have two terrible consequences, speaking about the lost Russian people and the neighborhood who has all the legitimacy to act against us. So secondly, we won't provide the aggressive Kremlin with legitimacy to act. On the other hand, we will, as the government wants to do it. So to conclude, what government tries to provide us with? So by shooting ourselves in the foot or in the face twice, as I said, we will look stupid brutes, and we will look like stupid brutes, and the externalities will only be negative, as was explained in my speech. But yes, we will be proud about ourselves with a stupid smile on our face, and we are strongly against harming ourselves. That's way, but it's not rational. Thank you.
Face.